The Verex Dominion fleet drifted silently through the black emptiness of the Zarin sector. Their warships glimmered like cold steel, perfectly aligned, engines humming in a low, dangerous rhythm. Generations of conquest had taught them that fear was their greatest weapon. No species had ever surprised them. No technology had ever challenged them, until today. A small blip appeared on the long-range scanners. "Unknown vessel," reported Lieutenant Zeiler, his 6 eyes narrowing at the flickering screen. No identification, no weapon signature, no shields detected. Commander Vrek laughed a low, rattling sound that echoed across the bridge. "Nothing in our sector moves without our permission. This is probably a scout. A weak, insignificant human ship, nothing more." The crew laughed too, though a small unease rippled through some of the younger officers. Humans had been talked about for centuries. A small, stubborn species from a backwater planet. Loud, brash, unremarkable, hardly worthy of their attention. And yet, rumors persisted, tales of human ingenuity, human courage, and strange weapons. Stories told in hushed tones by those who had encountered them in the far edges of the galaxy. "Scan it," Vrek ordered. Finally, his tone sharp. "I want a full systems analysis. Every detail, find out if it is worth our attention or our amusement." The Verex engineers began their work. Scanners swept over the ship, sending streams of energy across the void. The initial readings were simple. Small vessel, light armor, limited power, a primitive craft, entirely as expected. But then something strange happened. The scan began to loop. Numbers blinked. Energy signatures fluctuated wildly. The instruments that had never failed in a century of Dominion service started to glitch, their screens flickering with incomprehensible patterns. Lieutenant Zeiler frowned. "Commander, the scan. It's not calculating correctly. The internal master sensors reported exceeds the external structure." "That is impossible," Vrek frowned, a hint of unease creeping into his tone. "Repeat the scan. Triple redundancy. Show me the actual numbers." The engineers did as ordered. The scanners dived deeper, through layers of hull, through compartments, through shields. But every time, the results became stranger. The vessel seemed wrong. Not in shape, not in size, but in something fundamental, something that should not exist according to the laws of physics. The bridge fell silent. "This is absurd," whispered Zeiler. "It can't be. Nothing like this is supposed to exist. It's his words trailed off. The commander leaned over the console, his eyes fixed on the ghostly blueprints emerging from the scanners. Layer after layer of armor, hidden compartments, weapon systems folded into themselves like some impossible origami, energy cores the likes of which had never been seen. Vrek's 6 hands clenched the edge of the console. "Show me the core, all of it, now." The engineers hesitated, but the command was absolute. The scanners dove into the ship's heart. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then the systems failed entirely. Screens went black. Data streams vanished. Alarms rang in the ears of every officer. "What is happening?" one of the engineers shouted. It's resisting the scan. Resisting." A single word, yet its weight struck the bridge like a hammer. No ship had ever resisted a Dominion scan. Not through stealth, not through shields, not through interference, never. Rek's voice was low, almost a growl. How is this possible?" The pause stretched, every officer frozen in disbelief. The unknown vessel floated silently. Its hull shimmered faintly under the distant starlight, but it made no movement. It did not fire, it did not flee, it did not respond. And yet, somehow it had turned their own technology against them. Lieutenant Zeiler's antennae twitched nervously. "Commander, I'm detecting structures within structures, weapons hidden inside the hull, power systems far beyond anything we know. The ship is impossible." Vrek did not speak. He stared, unable to tear his gaze away from the impossible design. Deep down he understood something terrifying. The humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were something else. Something far beyond expectation. The bridge, once full of laughter and confidence, now vibrated with a tense, unspoken fear. Engineers fumbled with controls. Officers whispered to one another. No one wanted to speak too loudly, as if raising their voices might summon disaster. Then, as if to punctuate the moment, a single data line appeared on every screen. "Scan attempt complete. Data insufficient. Further analysis impossible." The human vessel had blocked them, not with weapons, not with shields, but simply by existing differently. Rek's voice was barely audible. "Prepare a message. Alert the fleet. Send caution orders. This human ship is not to be underestimated." But even as he said it, he knew, deep down, in the silent chambers of his mind, that words would do nothing. They had touched something dangerous, something patient, something that waited. The unknown vessel drifted silently, a dark shape against the void, alone, calm, waiting. And the Verex Dominion learned a lesson they would never forget. Some ships are not meant to be scanned. Some truths are too powerful to be revealed. Because this was not a scout. This was not a patrol ship. This was a human warship, and one scan had already changed everything. The Verex Dominion engineers worked frantically, trying to understand what had just happened. Their scanners had failed. Their systems had refused to process the data, and the ship, silent, dark, unmoving, simply drifted in space, as if mocking them. Lieutenant Zeiler's eyes darted nervously between the flickering screens. "Commander, The readings, they don't make sense. Every time we try again, the numbers change. It's like the ship is alive, adjusting itself to avoid detection. Commander Vrek clenched his fists. Impossible. Nothing alive can interfere with our scanners like this. Nothing. Except his voice faltered. He refused to finish the thought aloud. Deep down, he already knew. For hours, the fleet tried to force the scan again. Every attempt ended the same way. Systems overloaded, consoles sparking, sensors looping endlessly. The human vessel remained perfectly still. Finally, the engineers managed to retrieve a fraction of the data, and what they saw made every Varex officer on the bridge pale. The human ship was not just a warship, it was a fortress, a laboratory, and a weapon all in one. Its outer hull appeared normal, but beneath it lay layers upon layers of armor designed to absorb and redirect energy far beyond what the Varex had ever seen. Weapons were hidden deep within the hull, folded in ways that defied logic. The scan revealed cannons capable of firing with extreme precision, at multiple targets simultaneously, yet invisible from outside. Some weapons could manipulate gravity, others could bend energy in unpredictable ways. The ship, it's like nothing we've ever known, whispered Lieutenant Zyla. Not just stronger, smarter. Vrek did not respond. He stared at the schematics, the impossible blueprints scrolling across the screens. The ship's AI, if it could be called that, had reacted to the scan. It had not fired, it had not run, it had observed, and somehow it had controlled the flow of information coming from its hull, making the Varex fleet's sensors useless. Then came the most shocking revelation: the ship's core energy systems. No energy signature was visible from outside, yet the ship contained a power source that could destroy entire planets. The engineers tried to quantify it, but their instruments failed again. It was beyond comprehension. It was a human ship, yes, but it was also a cosmic weapon. Lieutenant Zyla swallowed nervously. Commander, if we attacked, if we fired, it could destroy everything in this system before we even hit the shields. Vrek exhaled slowly. We are not attacking. Not yet, but we need to understand. We need to know its limits. He studied the ship for hours. The more data came in, the worse it became. This was not a patrol vessel. This was a frontline warship designed to survive the impossible. And then the scanners picked up something else, something that made even hardened officers freeze. The human vessel's AI had begun to analyze the Varex fleet. Targeting algorithms calculated trajectories, energy outputs, shield frequencies. No weapons had been fired, no alarms sounded, yet every ship in the fleet was being studied, measured, judged. It was not just powerful, it was aware. It understood its enemies before they even made a move. Commander Zyla said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's learning. It's predicting us. It knows what we'll do next. Rek's hands clenched again. He had faced threats before. He had conquered entire planets, but nothing had ever made his heart pound like this. The humans were not just strong, they were beyond expectation, beyond imagination, beyond fear itself. Hours passed. The fleet remained tense, unable to act, unable to comprehend. Every officer aboard every ship knew that one mistake could mean annihilation. And then, as if to remind them, a single message appeared on the Varex com system. Not loud, not threatening, but calm, clear, human. We have noticed your scan. Do not attempt again. No threat, no anger, just a statement. The silence that followed was louder than any warning. Every Varex officer understood immediately this ship could have destroyed them in an instant. It chose not to. The fleet continued to drift near the dead star. The human vessel remained motionless, waiting, watching, calculating. And with every passing minute, the truth became undeniable. The humans were not weak, they were not primitive. There was something else entirely. Something the galaxy had underestimated. Vrek finally spoke, his voice low and steady, though his eyes betrayed fear. Prepare a full report. Send warnings to the High Council. Every fleet in the sector must be informed. Do not underestimate humans ever again. Lieutenant Zyla hesitated. Commander, should we attack? Should we? Vrek shook his head. No, not now, not ever, unless we wish to end ourselves. The human ship continued its silent vigil. No weapons fired, no alarms sounded. And yet the Varex fleet felt as if a shadow had fallen across every ship, a shadow that carried the weight of death, precision, and patience. Because the scan had revealed the unimaginable, humanity was not just a species to fight. Humanity was a force to be feared. And one ship alone, silent, unstoppable, had already changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The Varex fleet retreated slightly, not out of strategy but out of instinct. The instinct that whispered in every officer's mind, do not provoke this ship, do not engage, do not scan again. The unknown human warship drifted silently, untouched, unthreatened, unshaken, and in the hearts of the Varex a single thought repeated endlessly. One scan had changed everything. The Varex Dominion fleet hovered tens of thousands of kilometers from the unknown human warship. Every officer aboard the massive command ship, Zaren's Wrath, felt the tension like a physical weight pressing against their chests. Silence dominated the void, broken only by the hum of engines and the occasional crackle of stressed consoles. 4 hours. No ship had moved. The humans had not fired a single weapon. Not a laser, not a missile, not even a warning shot. And yet, The Virex fleet was paralyzed not by fear of what had happened, but by the unknown of what could happen. Lieutenant Zyler broke the silence, his voice trembling slightly. "Commander, they're still scanning us." Vrex's eyes, sharp as obsidian, darted across the flickering displays. "Impossible. We control this sector. No ship should ever calculate all of us simultaneously." "Not just calculate," Zyler said. "They know us. They know our shields, our weapons, even our fleet formations. The AI, whatever controls that ship, is anticipating our every move, every possible maneuver." The Virex officers glanced at one another uneasily. Anticipation, planning, strategy, all their experience and training suddenly felt fragile, small, ineffective. Varric leaned back, silent for a moment, then finally spoke. "If they are this powerful, then we must establish communication. We cannot continue like this. Prepare a message, offer truce, or something." The communications officer hesitated. "Commander, are you sure? They've already proven they are beyond our understanding. Sending a message could provoke them." Breck's voice was cold, decisive. "It's a risk we must take. They have already made the first move by scanning us. Now it's our turn." A few moments later a transmission was sent. The message was formal, controlled a mix of intimidation and diplomacy, the kind that had ended countless wars before. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. State your purpose. Leave our sector, or face the consequences." For a tense minute, nothing happened. Every officer on the bridge held their breath. The only sound was the hum of the ship's engines and the faint static of the comm system. Then, unexpectedly, the human ship responded. Not with weapons, not with threats. A calm, deliberate voice resonated across the fleet's comm system, clear, polite, almost casual. "We are aware of your scan. We are not hostile. We are observing. Leave now, or further observation may have consequences." The Virex officers froze. The voice was human, ordinary, polite, and yet it carried an underlying weight of power, subtle but undeniable. Rhett clenched his jaw. "Observation, that's all. They are telling us not to test them again." Lieutenant Zyler's antennae twitched nervously. "It's not a threat, not in words, but every system we've scanned. They know exactly what we are capable of. They are not bluffing." The fleet's officers exchanged uneasy glances. Every calculation they ran confirmed it. Any sudden movement could trigger retaliation. Any mistake could be fatal. And yet, in the calm of that voice, there was a warning, a promise that this ship could destroy them all without ever raising its guns. Vrek made his decision. Maintain position. Do not fire. Do not move closer. Let them decide when to act. For the first time in the history of the Virex Dominion, the officers understood that the initiative was no longer theirs. One scan of a single human warship had shifted the balance. Then came the next surprise. Sensors picked up subtle changes in the human vessel. Systems that had seemed dormant began to glow faintly. Targeting matrices activated. Energy readings spiked in ways the engineers could barely interpret. No weapon fired. No threat was declared. And yet every ship in the fleet now felt vulnerable. "Their targeting systems," Zyler whispered. "They've locked onto every Virex ship at once, but they haven't fired." Varric exhaled slowly, a chill running down his spine. "They don't need to. They just need to exist. That's enough." And then came the mistake. Captain Zyrith, commanding the lead frigate, was eager to show courage. "Commander, we should strike first. We cannot." Vrek slammed a clawed hand on the console. "Do not. This is not bravery. This is suicide. We wait. We survive. That is the only choice." But, even as he spoke, Zyrith's fleet had already begun a subtle maneuver, an aggressive repositioning intended to intimidate the human ship. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible. The human vessel reacted instantly, not with destruction, not with chaos, but with precision. Energy readings spiked. Shields flickered across Zyroth's ships. Systems were recalibrated in milliseconds. Instruments reported impossible stress. The fleet's movements slowed, as if the ship itself were controlling the space around them. And then the humans sent another message. Short, direct. "Seize all aggression. Next time, it will not be a warning." The weight of those words settled across the fleet like a stone. The officers felt it in their bones. The calm voice, polite yet commanding, was no bluff. The humans could have destroyed them. And the Virex now understood that even hesitation could be fatal. Silence returned. The Virex fleet floated tens of thousands of kilometers away, engines humming nervously. No one dared speak. No one dared act. One simple scan had revealed the unimaginable. Humans were not only capable, they were unstoppable if provoked. Vrek finally spoke, his voice low and steady, though his eyes betrayed fear. "Prepare a full report for the High Council. Every fleet in the sector must be warned. Humanity. They are not what we believed. They are something else." Lieutenant Zyler's voice was quiet, almost trembling. "Commander, should we leave?" Rek's eyes did not leave the human ship. "Yes, for now, retreat and pray we never meet them in battle unprepared." And in the black void of space, the human warship drifted silently, as if it had already won. One scan, one single scan. And the Virex Dominion had already made their first mistake. The Virex Dominion fleet hovered tens of thousands of kilometers away from the human warship, still reeling from the encounter. Every officer aboard Zaren's Wrath felt the unshakable weight of uncertainty. They had faced countless enemies in their centuries of conquest, yet nothing had left them this unsettled. The human vessel remained completely still. Its hull glimmered faintly under the distant starlight, as though the void itself respected it. No weapons fired, no alarms blared, and yet every Varric sensor screamed. This ship was alive, aware, unstoppable. Lieutenant Zyler could not hide his growing anxiety. "Commander, sensors are picking up unusual fluctuations in space itself, not weapons fire, not energy bursts, but distortions, localized, precise, controlled. This isn't normal technology." Commander Vrek's 6 hands clenched the edge of his console. "Explain." Zyler hesitated, his antennae twitching. "It's manipulating the environment, gravity, energy, even the space between ships. We're detecting controlled ruptures in space itself. The humans are demonstrating without firing." A ripple of tension ran across the bridge. Officers exchanged panicked glances. A weapon that didn't fire, a ship that didn't move, yet exerted control over reality itself that was beyond comprehension. Rek's jaw tightened. "Show me." The display panels flickered. Across the void, a subtle tear appeared in space, a controlled rupture, glowing faint blue, stretching and twisting the light around it. The Varric ships shuddered as their sensors registered the phenomenon. Instruments strained to keep up. Hull integrity fields wavered slightly. Not enough to cause destruction, but enough to prove a terrifying point. Lieutenant Zyler's voice trembled. "They didn't attack. They just made their presence felt. And now, every ship in our fleet is being observed. Every shield, every weapon, every movement." The bridge fell silent. Fear was not screaming here. It was quiet, suffocating, inevitable. The humans had not struck a single blow, yet their message was unmistakable. They could, if they chose. Then the comm system activated. The human voice, calm and measured, echoed across the fleet once more. "This is a demonstration. No lives will be harmed. Consider this a warning. Do not underestimate human technology. Do not test its limits. Do not scan again." The words were polite, almost courteous, but every Varric officer understood the threat implicit in the calmness. This was not arrogance. This was restraint. Vrek exhaled slowly, trying to steady his racing thoughts. "Lieutenant, estimate. How fast could they annihilate a single frigate?" Zyler hesitated. "Commander, if they chose to attack, 1 frigate would be gone before any countermeasure could respond. 3, 6. The entire vanguard could be neutralized in seconds." Vrek's eyes narrowed. "They are not just powerful. They are precise. They are patient. They are controlled." A subtle vibration ran through the fleet as the human vessel's energy fields subtly shifted. Not an attack, not a move, but a presence that made every Varric ship feel as though the human ship's awareness penetrated their hulls, their AI or whatever controls that ship. "It is analyzing every potential action we could take," Zyler said. "Every maneuver, every calculation. It knows before we do." The fleet's officers paled. For the first time in history, they realized that intelligence, strategy, and patience could be as deadly as weapons themselves. And the humans had all three in infinite measure. Vrek's claws gripped the console. "This is not an ordinary ship. This is not an ordinary species. They are beyond anything we imagined. Retreat, perhaps. But the galaxy must know what we have seen." The Varric's fleet remained stationary. No one dared move. Every second was measured, every breath tense. The humans were silent, but their power, their dominance, had been made clear. And then came another subtle phenomenon. A small cluster of debris near the fleet began to shift, pulled toward an invisible point in space. Sensors showed energy readings, subtle fluctuations bending the debris' path perfectly. Not a threat, but a lesson. Even the smallest object could be manipulated with terrifying precision. The message could not have been clearer. The human ship was untouchable. It could destroy, or it could spare. It could kill silently, or wait patiently, It could calculate and decide in ways no Dominion officer could predict. Vrek exhaled slowly. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Prepare reports for the High Council. Every fleet in this sector must know the lesson we have learned. Humanity, they are not to be tested." Zyler nodded. One scan changed everything. The moment we probed that ship, we exposed ourselves, and now the humans have chosen to demonstrate their restraint. The human warship continued to drift silently, perfectly still. No guns fired, no shields flared, and yet the Varric's Dominion felt the weight of its presence in every molecule of space. For the first time in centuries, the Varric's Dominion fleet knew something entirely new. Power need not be loud to be undeniable. And in that silence, one truth settled like a shadow across the fleet. They had seen humanity at its strongest, and one lesson would echo forever. Never provoke a human warship, not even with a scan. The silent demonstration was complete. The galaxy had already begun to remember. The Varric's Dominion fleet hovered tens of thousands of kilometers from the human warship, still trembling under the weight of the previous demonstration. Silence had fallen, but it was not the peace of calm, it was the suffocating silence of fear. Every officer aboard the Zaren's Wrath felt it in their bones. Every sensor hummed with tension. Every weapon system, perfectly operational, felt useless. Lieutenant Zyler studied the screens, his antennae twitching nervously. "Commander, their energy readings are rising again. Not weapons, not shields. Something else, it's targeting us." Rek's 6 eyes narrowed. "Explain." Xyla swallowed every ship in our fleet. The systems report precise calculations of every weak point. Hull, shields, engines, even crew life support. They've mapped us completely, and yet, they haven't fired. The bridge fell silent. The humans were not attacking. They were demonstrating, teaching a lesson. Every officer knew it. But the implications were worse than any attack. They had shown restraint, and that meant the next time, there might be none. Suddenly, the human warship shifted. Not visibly, not in movement, but in energy. The sensors detected 3 ships in the Varex fleet being silently disabled. No explosions, no alarms, no casualties. Systems failed, weapons went offline, engines froze. The affected ships drifted helplessly. Lieutenant Xyla's voice trembled. "Commander, they disabled 3 of our frigates, without firing a single shot. No lives lost, just control. Absolute control." Vrek leaned over the console, his heart pounding. "This is precision beyond imagination. They aren't killing us, they are showing us what they could do." The bridge officers whispered among themselves. The humans had not acted out of anger. They had not sought vengeance. Yet their actions were undeniable. The humans had broken the fleet without violence, proving a single truth. They were untouchable. The comm system activated again, the calm human voice echoing across the fleet. "This was a demonstration of restraint. Every system you rely on is within our control. You have been warned. Humanity does not need to fight to win. Next time it will not be a warning." The words settled across the fleet like a hammer striking stone. Polite, calm, almost courteous, but the meaning was crystal clear. Any future attempt to provoke, attack, or scan a human vessel could mean annihilation. Lieutenant Xyla swallowed hard. "Commander, we underestimated them. We thought humans were weak, primitive. But this ship, it can decide the outcome of a battle before a shot is fired." Vrek's claws clenched. "We live today because they allowed it, because they chose to show restraint. We must retreat. Every fleet in this sector must know what we've seen. Humanity is not a species to be underestimated." The affected ships slowly regained control. Systems coming back online, engines humming cautiously. No one aboard dared speak. Every officer felt the invisible weight of the human presence pressing down on them. Vrek finally addressed the fleet over comms. His voice was steady, though internally he trembled. "All fleets fall back. Maintain distance, do not provoke. Do not scan again. Humanity is beyond our comprehension." As the Varex fleet retreated, the human warship did something unexpected. It did not pursue, it did not fire. It simply drifted silently, observing, waiting, calculating. Its purpose was clear. The humans were not here to kill. They were here to ensure the galaxy understood the cost of mistakes. Lieutenant Xyla whispered, almost to himself, "They didn't destroy us. They didn't need to. That was worse. Their power, their control. It's terrifying." Vrek stared into the void, the human ship a dark silhouette against distant stars. For centuries he had faced countless species, countless threats. Empires had fallen, worlds had burned, enemies had been annihilated. But never had he felt this small, this helpless. The human warship had proven one thing. True power did not rely on violence alone. It relied on precision, intelligence, and the restraint to make your opponent fear the consequences. And now, the Varex Dominion fleet carried that lesson with them. Every officer aboard every ship knew it. The humans were not simply powerful, they were incomprehensible, untouchable, and patient beyond measure. Vrek's eyes narrowed. "Prepare reports. High Council, every fleet, every commander, humanity has revealed its strength. One scan, one single scan, changed everything." Lieutenant Xyla nodded, still pale. "They could have destroyed us, and yet they didn't. They gave us a warning, but they also proved we would not survive if we challenged them again." As the Varex fleet limped away, engines humming cautiously, the human warship drifted silently. Its hull reflected the distant starlight. Its systems glowed faintly, a reminder that power existed beyond comprehension. In the hearts of the Varex officers, one thought repeated endlessly: never provoke a human warship. Never underestimate humanity. One scan, and everything changed. And across the galaxy, the tale of restraint and power would spread. A species that had once been dismissed as primitive had shown the universe what it meant to be human, not through anger, not through destruction, but through control, precision, and the silent threat of overwhelming power. The galaxy had learned its first true lesson about humanity, and it would not forget. The Varex Dominion fleet retreated through the void of space, engines humming cautiously, every officer aboard still reeling from the encounter. The human warship had not fired a single shot in anger. Yet the memory of its presence was seared into the minds of every Varex commander. Commander Vrek stared at the dark silhouette fading in the distance, his mind racing. For centuries he had conquered worlds, bent empires to his will, and crushed enemies who thought themselves clever. Yet nothing had shaken him like this. Nothing had made him question his own supremacy. Lieutenant Xyla spoke softly, almost in disbelief. "Commander, they didn't destroy us. They didn't even touch most of the fleet, and yet we are terrified. We've seen their restraint, and it frightens me more than war itself." Vrek nodded slowly. "It's not fear of death. It's fear of something greater: control, precision, patience. The humans didn't need to fight to win, they just exist, and one scan was enough." Across the galaxy, news of the encounter spread like wildfire. Messages were intercepted, stories were whispered in high councils, and fleet commanders across countless systems paused in their routine operations, thinking, humans are not a threat to be ignored, humans are a force. In the Verex Dominion, the incident triggered an emergency council meeting. Fleet after fleet submitted detailed reports. Every officer emphasized the same points. One human warship, unarmed, alone, had revealed the true potential of humanity. The Dominion had underestimated a young, primitive species, and that mistake could have cost them everything. Meanwhile, the human warship continued its patrol, silent and unassuming. Its hull gleamed faintly in the starlight, systems humming quietly. To any observer, it seemed like a lone ship, drifting in the void. But to those who had scanned it Tri-Toother, humans had already written a warning across the stars. Do not underestimate us. Do not provoke us. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. The galaxy learned another lesson that day. Humanity's power was not measured by the firepower it unleashed, but by the control it wielded over its enemies' minds and fears. For the Verex Dominion, the ramifications were immediate. Commanders ordered a re-evaluation of their strategies. Fleets were redirected, and long-term plans were altered. Every system under their control trembled with the knowledge that one misjudgment could awaken humanity's wrath. Even smaller empires, previously dismissed by the Verex as inconsequential, began taking humans seriously. Traders, diplomats, spies, everyone started watching the stars with a new awareness. Humanity, once thought of as primitive and limited, now commanded respect through intelligence, patience, and precision. Back on the human warship, the crew went about their routine quietly. No celebrations, no prideful declarations, just observation, analysis, preparedness. For humans, this encounter was not about fear or dominance. It was about reminding the galaxy of a truth. The universe underestimates humanity at its peril. Lieutenant Zeiler, in a private report to Vrek, wrote, one single scan changed the course of this sector. It was not the weapons, it was not the firepower. It was the understanding that humanity controls what others cannot even imagine. We are no longer the dominant force here. The humans are something else entirely. The Verex commanders debated endlessly. Some argued for retaliation, some called for study, but deep down, every one of them knew the same terrifying fact. Humanity had already won. Not by fire, not by conquest, but by showing restraint and precision. In other sectors, similar reports arrived. Aliens who had encountered humans in small fleets began reporting unexpected phenomena, attacks that never happened, systems failing without reason, technology behaving in impossible ways. Across the galaxy, a new legend was born, the legend of the human warship, the ship that could defeat without firing, dominate without striking, and teach fear without cruelty. The Verex Dominion changed their doctrine. Scanning human ships was forbidden. Engagements with humans were to be avoided. Warnings were sent to every fleet under their command. Humanity was not to be underestimated, and any attempt to provoke them could result in annihilation. For humanity, life went on as usual. Ships patrolled, explorers charted new systems, and research continued. They did not need glory or recognition. They needed only to be themselves, capable, controlled, and ready. And yet, the galaxy would remember. Every species, every empire, every fleet would carry the same story through the ages. A single human warship, scanned once, changed everything. The lesson echoed not just in military corridors, but in the halls of power, in the whispers of diplomats, and in the silent calculations of spies. Humanity is patient. Humanity is precise. Humanity is unstoppable when underestimated. In the end, the humans had not destroyed the Verex. They had not fired a single shot, but they had accomplished more than 1,000 battles could ever achieve. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity, to fear them, to acknowledge that one scan of a human warship was enough to alter the balance of power forever. And somewhere in the void, the lone human warship drifted silently, a sentinel of a species that had quietly proven that strength was not always measured in weapons, but in restraint, control, and the understanding of power. The galaxy would remember, and so would the Verex one scan. One human warship, one unforgettable lesson.